Welcome everybody. This is Introduction to Translation, Lecture 1. Here we are going today to talk about the different kinds of translation in addition to the strategies used in translation. First, we have to know that translation here is viewed as a product, not as a process. We have to distinguish between two different kinds of translation, literal and free translation. We have literal translation, which is source language bias, the focus on the source language. Free translation on the other extreme, which is target language bias. The focus is on the target language. Between the two extremes, we have other kinds of translation. We will discuss it. First, look at these examples of literal and free translation. اللي فات مات. This is Arabic colloquial proverb. Here it is translated what passed died. This is literal translation. This is very literal because it does not make sense in English. Let bygones be bygones. This is a free translation. This makes sense in English. Another example is يوم لك ويوم عليك. You win some, you lose some. It is not literal translation. If we translate it literally, it will be a day for you and a day on you. This is not accepted in English. Communicative translation. This is an example of free translation. Communicative translation is reduced when in a given situation the source text uses source language expression standard for the situation, and the target text uses target language expression standard for equivalent target cultural situation. In brief, source text uses target language expression. Target text uses target language expression. This is true of many culturally conventional formula that do not invite literal meaning. An example, ممنوع التدخين. It is translated communicatively as no smoking. لا شكر على واجب. Don't mention it. Idiomatic translation. In idiomatic translation, we use an idiom using a fixed figurative expression whose meaning cannot be deduced from the denotation or denotative meanings of the words, as we see in the dictionary. For example, if we say it rains cats and dogs. Rains cats and dogs, it is not translated literally as تمطر قططا وكلابا, but it should be translated as تمطر بغزارة أو أمطار غزيرة. Another example is football is not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea, it is not literally translated as كوب الشاي. It means something I like it, my cup of tea. So football is not my cup of tea should be translated as كرة القدم ليست من هواياتي أو كرة القدم ليست شيء أفضله أو يعني على سبيل المثال. From literal to free translation. Another example. This Arabic sentence مثل هذه الأشياء عليها إقبال كثير الآن. We have here 5 different translations. Literal, faithful, balanced, idiomatic, and free. Literal translation is word by word. Faithful translation, a little bit, it sticks to or it is based on the source text. Read the literal translation, the likes of these things have much demand now. Faithful translation, things like these are in great demand now. These are not favored in English. Balanced translation, a little bit, it is good. This kind of things in great demand. This is an English expression. Look at the idiomatic translation. This type is all the rage. All the rage, it is an expression, idiomatic expression in English. Free translation here, the last translation, the last kind. Free translation, it is translated as this one's very trendy. And you know this word is famous in social media, trendy. So this is free translation or better translation. Now we talk about equivalence. Equivalence is a relationship between the source text and the target text. Equivalence. We have two different kinds of equivalence, formal and dynamic equivalence. First, formal equivalence, it is based on the source text. It is literal, it is word for word. The relationship between the source text features and target text features that are seen as directly corresponding to one another, regardless of the quality of target text. ممنوع الدخول, forbidden is the entrance. Another example, مع السلامة, with the well-being. The second kind of equivalence, dynamic equivalence. Relationship between source language expression and canonic target language rendering of it as required. ممنوع الدخول, no entry. مع السلامة, goodbye. This is a little bit accepted. According to NIDA, the relationship between receptor and message should be substantially the same as that which existed between the original receptors and the message. A case in point is communicative translation, which may be said to be an example of dynamic equivalence. Now we can talk about translation loss. Sometimes we see something missing between the source text and the target text. We lose equivalence. Incomplete replication of source text and target text. That is inevitable loss of textual and cultural relevant feature. There is translation loss even at the most elementary level. For instance, baqara and cow, they are equivalent, but phonetically they are not equivalent because different sounds. This might be important in translating poetry and in translating prosodic text. They clearly sound different. There is significant translation loss on the phonic and the prosodic level. This might be important in poetry translation because of rhyme and other sound significance. Thus, if the source text word is part of an alliterative or alliteration or alliterative pattern in a literal text, or worse, if it rhymes, the loss could be crucial. So this is phonetically or phonologically different. Translation strategies. We have different translation strategies. First, omission. Omission can occur for many legitimate reasons. Sometimes background information. In Arabic media, we say هذا وجدير بالذكر. When we translate this, هذا or وجدير بالذكر, we should omit these expressions because they do not make sense in English. Okay? Arabic uses these different patterns for cohesion, but in English, it is not. These expressions are not used. So we should omit these expressions when we translate from Arabic into English. Another example, look at this example. وكان الرئيس الأمريكي بيل كلينتون قد أكد مساء أول من أمس. 2 days ago, the American president Bill Clinton confirmed. 2 days ago. Here it is not mentioned that مساء أول أمس, because timing is not important. Sometimes, for particular reason, we omit this expression. Number 3, cultural differences. You know, when we say بابا الفاتيكان يوحنا بولس الثاني, in English expression, بابا الفاتيكان يوحنا بولس الثاني, Pope John Paul II. Here, Vatican is omitted. Addition, the second strategy. Translation in which something is added to the target text which is not present in the source text. Number 3, cultural transposition. Cultural transposition, it means any departure from literal translation that involves replacing the source language expression or specific feature with target language specific features. thereby to some extent reducing the foreignness of the target text. Look at this diagram. We have cultural transposition, source language, target language bias. Source language bias on the left and target language bias on the right. We have exoticism, exotic translation, strange translation. We have calque translation. We have cultural borrowing, communicative translation, and cultural transplantation. Extreme number one, exotic translation or exoticism. For example, when you translate Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. It is literally, it is strange in English, exotic, and the target culture, which is English. Number B, calque. Calque like cut and paste. For example, زاد الطين بلة, you copy the same structure, an expression that consists of target language words and respects target language syntax, but it is unidiomatic in the target language because it is modeled on the structure of a source language expression. We cut and paste. زاد الطين بلة, to increase the clay moistness. لعب دورا is a calque translation from the English expression play role. Play a role. It is translated as لعب دورا. In Arabic it should be يؤدي دورا. The third kind is cultural transplantation. Here it is like a source of replacing the expression with something used in the target culture. It is like an adaptation. قيس وليلى, Romeo and Juliet. It is not translated as قيس وليلى. Number 4, cultural borrowing. It is, borrowing an expression from a language. For example, الشريعة, fatwa, these words are borrowed from Arabic into English. This is a sort of, it can be called as transliteration. These are the differences. Thank you for your listening.